All right, welcome back to the third episode of Kicking It in Higher Ed. Today I am joined by Tyler Hospodarsky. How you doing, Tyler?
Doing fantastic. How are you?
Dude, just living.
I love it.
So, Tyler, give us a little introduction. Tell us about your job, what you do, how you got there.
Yes. So I currently work in UNI's University of Northern Iowa's Office for Professional Distinction as an academic advisor and recruiter. So the way I break it down for like my grandma, who doesn't really fully understand, my grandpa who doesn't understand what I do, is like 50% of my job is advising the current students at UNI. And then the other 50% is recruiting the students who aren't here. And I would say primarily when I recruit students, I'm recruiting folks who are, or I should say students who are like in high school. So I do a lot of them. We have someone else in our office that does a lot of the transfer stuff. I started in that office as a GA about 2 years ago from this past August. I started in the same program that I know you're doing, the PSC program, and just got paired in that office. So did a GA, worked my way up. After a year doing that, got promoted, and worked full-time my last year in grad school last year as like a temp full-time. Got
Nice.
hired on fully full-time, full benefits, everything like that this past April, and then have been working there since. And really, I guess to take you further back, of just like my passion for higher ed,
hmm
really it kind of started in undergrad. I was involved in a few things, had an on-campus job, and just kind of senior year had this like revelation of like, oh my gosh, like we kind of got something here. So that
hmm
was really, I would say, what pushed me to do higher ed in the first place. And with the way the chips fall sometimes, this is
Yeah.
where we are now. So
No, for sure. I was actually going to ask you that about because your undergrad wasn't necessarily related to higher ed then, was it?
no, and that's what's kind of funny about it, just with the way things work. So when I came into undergrad, always been a big
hmm
sports guy, still am. You can see by the I actually
Oh
made
yeah.
this during the pandemic here. Yeah, I made
hmm
this is like out of all my Sports Illustrated bags. So still big sports guy.
Yeah.
But I always thought I wanted to go work in a sports front office, and did a few internships during undergrad, and realized pretty quickly that the hours were too long for me, and I felt like there was actually a big difference between being an avid sports consumer, which, like I said, I am, was, still am, always will be, whatever, and
hmm
someone who works in sports. And for some people, they can combine that. Other people, like me, just wasn't really jiving. Like I didn't want to be working late nights,
hmm
and different things like that. And so, for a variety of different reasons, was really like my senior year, is sports really the route I want to go? And I was ambassador in undergrad. I did an organization called Connecting Alumni to Students. So got to work with alums. I worked
hmm
at a campus registrar's office. And I would say through a lot of those different experiences was like, I really love all these things, but they're all kind of different. And so then I was like,
hmm
well, I can do this. Like I can do different things for my job. And so from that point, really my senior year on, just learned more about the higher ed, I would say landscape and everything that you're able to do. And can do. And then
hmm
actually, fun fact, I'm actually, so my last day as an academic advisor and recruiter is tomorrow. I know
Oh
you didn't.
boy.
Yes, so I have a new job. I'm still at UNI. I'm not
Yep.
going anywhere.
Go
But
Cats.
I'm moving to our foundation office. So
Okay,
I'm doing
nice.
like fundraising stuff. And I would say that even within itself, even though I'm still working for UNI, still working in higher education, is a pivot within itself, because I haven't done
hmm
a lot of fundraising stuff, but I'm really, really excited to start that new role too. So
No, that's super exciting, man.
yeah,
Congrats.
thank you.
Didn't know
Thank
that.
you. Yeah, it's awesome.
Jeez.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you what your favorite part of your job is, if it's the advising or recruiting, but now we're
Yeah.
on to
Well,
fundraising. So,
well, yeah. No, I mean, I'm excited for fundraising. I mean, if you were to ask me that, I still would say that the recruiting is my favorite part. And I would
yeah.
say part of the reason why I got into this fundraising job was because I liked recruitment so much. And
hmm
I like advising too. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think one of the things I loved about recruitment was it felt very goal oriented, which I liked. Like, you're
Yep.
trying to recruit students here. But I liked, like, if, David Holsinger comes on a visit to UNI, right, and is
Oh,
interested in
yeah.
business, I can meet with you, and maybe you're interested in finance. And then for
hmm
me, it's all like a puzzle, right? It's like connecting you and what you're interested in into what UNI can offer and what we're good at and what, I know our
hmm
strengths are, and being able to talk on that and elaborate and feel comfortable with that. And so, uh,
hmm
yeah, the recruitment was so fun. A lot of it was relationship building, which a lot of that goes hand in hand with what I'm going to do in fundraising. And so
Yep.
there was a lot of, I would say, parallels between what I loved in recruitment and what I'm going to do in fundraising, which is part of the reason I went that route. But
Hmm.
I loved advising, but recruitment was far and away the something that I was really, really drawn to. So
Sweet, man.
yeah.
Did you have to do a lot of traveling for your last recruitment? And are you going to have
No,
to for your new one, though?
yeah, no, both no, actually. And it's
Okay.
interesting because like if you're working admissions, if you're a
Hmm.
admissions counselor, you do a lot of traveling. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
really, I want to say all you do, but a lot of what you do in the fall.
Hmm.
And depending on what your job is in fundraising and advancement, like you might be doing a lot of traveling for that too. And so for me, I did some travel for being a recruiter. I
Hmm.
sometimes would go to like high school business conferences, but like really
Yep.
like traveling to the schools and different things like that. That was primarily left to our admissions office who does all of that. And we didn't want to
Okay.
like overlap efforts with that. And it worked out fine. It was probably better that way because I still had responsibilities and commitments to be on campus advising students.
Yeah.
But as far as my new job goes, it's primarily residential. I mainly when I meet with donors, at least at this point, the goal is to
Hmm.
set up Zoom meetings, kind of like this, I guess.
Yep.
And just Zoom with them and chat with them and different things like that. So travel really isn't built into that, but I will say it's a brand new position. And so I always tell people, and like everyone knows this, whenever you have a new position, there's always a
Hmm.
certain degree of like the unknown, and we're going to change and adapt things based on what works and what doesn't and what we
Yep.
see as potential opportunities. And so, I've told people I probably won't travel. That's not the plan, but
Hmm.
you never know. In a year, if we're like, well, we could, even if we traveled an hour, with radius from Cedar Falls, we could have, this many more donors or something like that. I think, you always are looking to capitalize on those opportunities too. So
For sure. Is your
yeah.
new job going to have anything to play into this big Our Tomorrow campaign then? Are
Oh
you going
yeah.
to be, oh yeah, big time focus on
Yeah.
that? And then for
Yeah.
listeners that don't know, it's a
Well, so to be
$150
honest,
million campaign or
it's a lot. So to be honest, it's $250 million,
okay,
and
250.
we
Yeah.
actually last I checked, and I need to actually check this again. Obviously, maybe I'll let you know on
We
Monday.
got to be pretty close on it, right?
We were like 243, and our
Yeah.
goal was
Oh,
to raise that by like 2025 or six. Like it was way, and
wow.
we've already blown it out of the water. I mean, we've done a really
Yeah.
good job. And when I say we, I should say they, because I really haven't started fundraising yet.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I assume when I get, because I start actually in this job, the fundraising job on Monday, um,
Hmm.
like, trying to get us to the 250 eventually because we'll hit it. But I think from what I've heard from like President Nook when he spoke and different things like that, a lot of it's been like, we're now trying to figure out like what our goal is going to be for 2025, 2026, since we've
Hmm.
already done, capitalize on what we were trying to do. We got to set new, bigger goals, and
For
so
sure.
whatever those goals are, I'll definitely be a part of that and making that
Hmm.
come forward. So
Yeah. And then, well, in your most recent position, then you got the big 25 million that just came
big
in
time.
for you and I's first named college. How
Yes.
do you think that's going to impact the College of Business just on like the admission side and as well as like kind of your advisor role? Do you think there's going to be a lot more, not necessarily maybe hires, but a lot more resources coming in for academic advisors?
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. What I would say is, anything's on the table.
Yeah.
The donor had specific, there was like I think three different priorities that he really wanted the money to go to. I know ethics was
Okay.
a big deal for him. I think I don't remember what his major was, what David Wilson's major was, but
Hmm.
he was a business minor. Ethics is just a really important thing for him. And so
Yep.
I know there's going to be, as far as advising goes, a lot more collaboration between the College of Business and our advisors with
Hmm.
the Department of Philosophy and Religion, because they have the ethics minor. And
Mm.
I think there's going to be some collaboration that maybe wasn't there before with that, which I think is an interesting thing. I would say just in terms of overall resources, what I tell people, and this is part of the reason why I made the move over to the foundation, is from
Hmm.
being an advisor, money isn't everything, but it can save a lot of problems and I would say stressors for a lot of our students that just face financial barriers across the board. And
For
so,
sure.
anytime you get $1,000, you're grateful for it, you're happy for it because it can provide opportunities for students who can't afford that, or just it
Yeah.
helps them. So obviously, when you get a $25 million donation, you're not going to complain or anything like that
No.
either. And I do think from a recruitment standpoint, having a named college is a big deal.
Hmm.
I don't know, because I'm not a prospective student, what or even a parent, like what that does in their minds. But I guess for
Hmm.
me, like if I was talking to a prospective student, what I would, and I've said this to a few of them, is, it's cool for our current students because they're here when we're naming the college, and so they're a part of history in that way.
Hmm.
But we can't touch the $25 million right now. It's not like he cut us a check and we have now 25 million in
For
the bank,
sure.
right? And I honestly, I don't know the logistics of how it all goes, but I know like one of the steps was getting it approved by the Board of Regents, which actually just happened. So that's exciting.
Yep.
But like we made the announcement on the 20th. Technically, again, the next day it wasn't like officially official. Like it was going to happen, but it didn't. So I've told a lot of our prospective students, you're the students that are going to benefit from this 25 million because you come in next year, you come in 2 years or 3 years, like we'll have the money by then. And
Yeah.
at that point, all the programs and put new positions or whatever we're going to use this money on is in place and fully enforced. And so I think that's what's cool from a recruitment and exciting from an admissions and a recruitment standpoint is like, for all of our future business students and even again, some of those philosophy and religion students, like, again, not that our current students aren't benefiting from it. They are, they're benefiting in some way, shape, or form, but from a financial standpoint, it's really our future students who are going to be able to capitalize on those types of things. So.
For sure. Dude, it's an exciting time for you and I, man. A lot of stuff happening. And I think we can both kind of attest to this of you and I was definitely a little bit on the down, like definitely around the COVID time for sure. And then this is the first time our enrollment's been over 9,000 since 2013, something like that.
Well, so I think so 9,000. This is the first time we've gone up, I think, since 2013. Okay. We've been over 9,000, but we've been ticking down. One thing I've told people, I think context is so hard. Like you and I guess I don't know about you.
Oh, it's almost impossible with COVID too. Like, how do you even throw that into the equation and everything?
Yeah, right. And so like I wasn't on other campuses, so I don't know what it was like. It sucked here. I think it sucked in a lot of places, and I think a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say this, and I was in the same way where like, it's hard to be in leadership positions in general. You have to make big decisions and stuff. I think at that point, I mean, especially when big things like that happen, I think it puts even more stress on people who are presidents and provosts and deans and department heads, stuff like that. It's hard. But yeah, it was hard. I mean, it's rough. And I think across what I know just from reading studies and hearing from, like across the board, across the country, it took a hit on a lot of people, a lot of schools. And so I think coming back from that has been great. And to your point, UNI's enrollment has been decreasing, over the last few years. And I think as I've gotten into my position as a recruiter and gone to our recruitment and different things like that, there are multiple explanations. We could probably talk for sure 3 hours about why enrollment's down. And I think what I usually tell people when they're like, well, why is UNI's enrollment down? First thing I always say is like across the board, across the country, less students.
Every school, it's going down.
So that's up. And so when you go up, when you tick up, it's always an exciting thing. And I think in my role as a recruiter, I always tried to, number one, I would say, help show students and families the value that a college degree and education can provide to them. Because that's number one. If there's no value in it, why would you spend thousands of dollars or 2 or 3, 4 years of your life to do that, right?
Yeah.
But then I think also with that, showing students the opportunities they have and stuff at UNI and beyond. One thing I always pushed out to students was getting involved. And I was like, if you go to UNI, if you go to Wartburg, if you go to U of I, if you go to USC out on the West Coast, you should be involved, right? And so I think like stuff like that, it's tough. Obviously, I'm biased and I love UNI. I got a huge passion for it. But truly, I mean, if you were to come to me and say, should I go to college or shouldn't I? I'm not even thinking about UNI. I'd be like, yeah, because I believe in the power of higher education, truly. And so that's something that I think, I always think it's tough to have the enrollment conversations because it's down across the board right now. But, I truly believe in my heart of hearts that it's not the right decision for everyone, but it is the right decision for a lot of people. And I think, I think those are conversations that I always like to have with people who are thinking about going to college.
For sure. Just coming to UNI, making the decision to come here. I was talking to actually Coach Paulson about this the other day. He was just like, man, so many things in my life would have not happened if I did not come to UNI. Is there anything in particular that just really sticks out to you that like just set you apart and you're just like, this is the best decision I've made?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And
it's a deep one, I know.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what I would say is like where to start. I don't know. I mean, other schools have ambassador programs. Maybe I would have went there. Maybe I would have been ambassador. Maybe I wouldn't have been.
Hmm.
Um, I'm one. I've said this before. I said this actually when I did my when I was presenting my final portfolio for the program that you're in, and I just finished,
Hmm.
right? Is that I'm really lucky. I have a great support system. I have a great mom and dad. I got a great brother, and I got great
Hmm.
grandparents. I've just been really, really lucky, and I know that to just
Hmm.
have the support. And so, I hate saying it would have all worked out, even if I went to U of I or Drake or Iowa
Hmm.
State or Warburg, name your school, USC. I would have
Yeah.
been fine. But I think about like I'm the on-court MC for football and men's basketball. Would that have happened at another school? I don't know if it would have. I really don't.
Hmm.
It kind of fell into my lap. I was really, really lucky. I knew the right people. I asked the right questions, I guess, and it's worked out.
Hmm.
And I loved doing that. It's been like one of the
Yeah.
highlights for me in my full-time undergrad through now, because I still do it now, right?
Hmm.
That's a highlight for me. And certainly. If I didn't go to UNI, I'm engaged right now. I wouldn't have the fiance that I have. I don't think, I
Hmm.
met her through the program, right? So,
Nice.
and I would say, I've told people before, the pandemic sucked. It was
Hmm.
not great, but the reason I met her was because of the pandemic. She was supposed to go out to Princeton, to seminary school. Pandemic happened. She was like, you know what? I'm not going to go out to Princeton in 2020. This is all messed up. I'm going to just stay at home, whatever.
Hmm.
And then she ended up enrolling the PSE program. We met there. We met in a Zoom breakout room. And so, like, wouldn't have ever met her, and
Yeah.
I would say, and this is not unique to you and I know this, but so many people, you included in this, I would
Hmm.
not know, would not have met, whatever, probably, had
Yeah.
I not gone to UNI. And so I think, again, if I had gone to another school, if I went to USC, if I went to, University of Florida, I would have met new people. I probably would have still had some great relationships. I would have had other friends. But now that I went to UNI, made the friends that I did, made the memories I did
Hmm.
with those people, like you don't want to go back and you wouldn't go back and at least I wouldn't and redo that. So,
Hmm.
I could go through all the professors and stuff, but the two that are unique to me is like I met my significant other, my life partner here, and that
Hmm.
MC role, that was pretty special, and I don't think is an opportunity that you always get at other places. So
For sure. And then kind of throwing it back to the beginning, you talked about not wanting to go into sports management because of those hours. And
yeah,
then is emceeing kind of like little hobby side gig you like to do? Just
100%.
or is it 100%? Yeah.
Yes. It's been like the perfect balance for me where
Hmm.
like I think about, so I intern at the Waterloo Bucks, and
Hmm.
for anyone who wants to intern at the Bucks, I think it's a great in to working in sports. Like you get some
Hmm.
really good like exposure to like what is it going to be like if I end up working in sports full time, right?
Hmm.
I also think working in UNI's athletic office is a good exposure to that, right? And I would
Hmm.
say it's not always easy. Like it's sometimes a grind, but again, I think
Yeah.
that's part of what you're signing up for in sports. And so I think it's good to get exposed to that. And so, when I interned with the Bucks, I remember for game days, we would be there at like 9:30 in the morning. I think sometimes when we first started it was 8, but once we got trained, it was like
Hmm.
9:30, 10. We work all day. We'd take like a half hour for lunch, and then we'd be there till 11 o'clock at night, right? And I don't fault the Bucks for that. Like that's just the how it goes, right? Like I think
Yeah.
if you were an intern or working full time at UNI's athletic office, it'd probably be that way for basketball, football, whatever, right? And so emceeing is
Hmm.
great because I show up about an hour before the game. I get the script. I looked over the script, make sure I'm good to go. I do the
Hmm.
game. I watch the game, and a lot of those games I'd want to be at anyways. Again, as an avid
Yeah.
sports consumer, right? So I still get to watch the games, and sometimes a little closer than maybe I would if I had a ticket, right?
Hmm.
And then the game gets done. I hand the microphone back, and I'm out, right? I don't do any teardown, and so I think it's been a really good, crossover between you're working in sports, but
Hmm.
you can have a life outside of that, and sure, maybe there's a game here and there where I'm like, oh my God, I want to stay at home in my sweats and just play Fortnite, or whatever,
Hmm.
whatever it might be. But truly, that's been such a great, I would say, way that I can combine my passion with sports with, I love to like, speak in front of groups of people and be engaging and be exciting and, and watch sports obviously at the same time too.
For sure. And then I know you're just getting into this new job, but do you think you'll ever want to have a little crossover with sports in higher education in the future, whether that's working as maybe athletic academic advisor or maybe working your way to an AD position someday? Is that something that's ever crossed your mind at all? Or
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I think, I don't know. It's tough to know. I think I would need to know more about what an AD actually does day to
Mhm.
day and what their job. One thing I have always, and I think others that have gone into higher education, like my fiance, for example, feels this similar way. Like I've told her, I'm like, you're gonna go be a president or a dean or something, or something someday. Like if she wanted to
Yeah.
be, I truly think she could. But something that we both, I would say, have felt together is like the higher up you go, do you get further away from students, right?
Mhm.
Like as a president, a provost, an athletic director, are you close enough with the students where do you feel like, not that you can't make a difference, but like I feel like sometimes you can really feel the tangible impact you make
Mhm.
when you're an advisor because you are meeting with students one-on-one. So I can say, I'm meeting with Tyler Hospodarsky and maybe he struggled, maybe he didn't, but either way, I worked with him and I helped
Mhm.
him through his time, and you can see that. And I think the higher up you go, maybe sometimes, and again, I haven't been in those positions, so maybe I'm totally wrong, but I think maybe there's a assumption or a vision that like that it gets too
Yeah.
high up. So what I would say, I guess, to get back to your question of if I would ever want to go back, I have told people for a while with most positions, the door's not closed on anything for me.
Mhm.
I'm always open to a conversation. I'm
Yeah.
never closed off. If I don't know. This is total hypothetical. If Coach Paulson came up to me and said, "Hey, we have a new position. I think you'd be great. Here's the position." I'd listen to what he has to say,
For
right?
sure.
Maybe I'm totally not interested. And like right now, I have no desire to go be an athletic academic advisor or an AD or something like that. But I also am starting a brand new position in the foundation, so come talk to me in 2, 3, 5, 10 years. And maybe in that
Mhm.
point, I'll be like, yeah, actually, I do want to go work in sports. Like I want to give it another shot or something like that. So,
Yeah.
I would say nothing's off the table, but I've told people for a while I'm pretty content, in this new role too. So
For sure. Man,
yeah,
putting the students first. We hear it time and
big
time
time.
again, especially in
Got
the
to.
PSC program right now. And it's obviously very commendable and we love it. And our first guest here, Marquez, actually, which I'm sure you know here, I'm graduated with him.
Big
And
time.
or yeah, you guys did graduate together, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
big time.
Yeah. He talked about his like kind of moment or like why he does higher ed, I guess, like that of
Yeah.
just seeing those like student eyes light up when he was speaking to a Hispanic family and telling them that
Oh
community
yeah.
college is an option for them. Do you have a moment that sticks out in your mind from your past job that is just like,
Yeah.
man, this is why I do it?
There's a lot. I think truly that's a great example. I think for me, it's we like to talk about the student. Like for me, I think a lot of advisors at least sometimes like to talk about the students like, they were failing everything and we worked together and
Hmm.
it's a grind, but we finally got to graduation. And those are cool.
Yeah.
And they're a grind, but and they're a grind for the student more than it is for us. For me,
Yeah.
again, to go back to my fiance, she thinks of it as more as like like a trail guide, as someone hiking the mountain, right? So maybe you're not
Hmm.
hiking the mountain the whole way with them, but you might provide trail mix or a map or
Yeah.
something like that. And that's, I think that's a good analogy for like what I feel like sometimes as an advisor or have in this role is like, I've told students before straight out, I'm like, I'm not taking the class, I'm not taking biz
Hmm.
stat, I'm not taking decision analytics. Like at the end of the day, and I don't know anything about those classes. So I can't even
Yeah.
tell you like this is what you're messing up on, right? Like you got to go out and you got to get a C- in macro, right? But I'm there to help students and I do think those are cool. But I would say the days that I'm like, why I do it, like I had it today in recruitment, to go back to what I love doing. I think to give you some context, and I would say give everyone context. I was talking to my mom about this the other day. More and more students are coming out of high school into schools like you and I, for example, with college credit. And it's not just like one class, two class. Like we're having like 20 students bringing an AA out of high school. We
Yeah.
have students on average bringing in 20 credits of college credit. And there's been conversations around, is that a good thing or a bad thing? And are they ready to take upper level, all this stuff. And
Hmm.
I always tell people like, I don't know if those conversations are for me because I think they're above my pay grade in terms of my knowledge of like, are developmentally they ready? Because some students maybe are, some aren't, whatever. But what I
Hmm.
do tell students from a recruiting standpoint is I say, we can sit here and I could say till I'm blue in the face, don't bring in credit. It's bad. It's a bad thing. And I'm not saying that, but if I did, I know they'd still bring in the credit, right? They're still
Yeah.
going to do it because what they're being told is it's a way to save money, and it is, right? And I
Mhm.
think for me, being able to show students, prospective students, and then also current students when they get here, like, this is how you, like, you can double major and you can do that in 4 years or less. You can
Mhm.
do these things, like, in showing them how they can achieve their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, and do that in a reasonable amount of time, sometimes earlier. I
Yeah.
think so many students, and again, this may be more specific to business given our curriculum and their classes, but like, so many of our students have such a great opportunity to double major and do that in 4 years or less. I don't think they always realize that, right? Like, I think
Mhm.
sometimes students are still just shocked when I'm like, yeah, you could be business analytics and supply chain management
Yeah.
and do it in 3.5 years. And they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, like, let's do it. And so I think showing them that is great. And I think this past year, I started really going full bore, full on recruitment last fall of 2022, and like really taking that over as mine in the college. And so this incoming class of first year students to UNI,
Mhm.
in our College of Business, a lot of them were students that I met with on a daily visit, on a visit day, and I know, like, I maybe have a relationship with them. And so,
Yeah.
I could go down the list and say, this student, this student, this student. Like, I remember meeting with them and their mom, or them and their dad, and them and their sibling at a daily visit, and then now they're here. And so seeing those faces in the halls of, like, that has been such a cool thing. And then,
Mhm.
knowing that those students, I think, have maybe a little bit more of a degree of comfort and trust in me and in you or whatever, it's really, really cool. And I think being able
Yeah.
to win over a student's trust like that, I think, is something, like, when I think about moving to the foundation, I mean, that's something that
Mhm.
I'll for sure miss. Like, I have students that I know are not in a weird way, but like attached to you, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, you're my person. When I have questions, when I'm worried, when I'm stressed about classes, about scheduling, about whatever, I come to you.
Mhm.
And I think I'll definitely miss that. And I think it's certainly a reason why I felt like, this is such a good place to be, and it's a good role to be in too. Very
Yeah.
given in that sense. So
Definitely. I definitely resonate with that when you're talking about just laying down the kind of the roadmap and saying you can do
mhm.
this in 4 years. As an athlete, I thought I want to take an easier load. It's gonna take me 5 years, and I was totally ready to do that. And then they were
Right.
just like, "Oh no, we could get you done in 4, 3.5 if you really want
Yeah.
to." I was like, "Really?" And they're like, "Yeah, you
Yeah.
don't even have to take 15 credits every semester." I was like,
Right.
"Word, yeah, let's do that, man."
Right.
That
Big
is,
time.
yeah, no, very, very awesome to hear from you.
Yeah.
But I think this is a good place for us to wrap up. Any last words of wisdom to, somebody that's in my shoes, or even somebody that's in maybe their bachelor's right now, but they're having that little senior year crisis where they're like, I don't know if I want to do this, and why higher education could be a route for them?
Yeah, I mean, for me, what I have said, a couple of things. Number one, for people that are in undergrad and are like kind of stuck, like, ooh, what I
Hmm.
would say, and I don't even fully know it now, really. There are so many different roles that you can do in higher
Yeah.
education, right?
Hmm.
Like, could you be an advisor? Yes. Should everyone be an advisor? Probably not, right? But does that mean you can't work in higher education? No. Like, an advisor is like 1% of the bigger picture of what you can do in higher education. There are so many
Hmm.
different things you can do. And so what I like to do sometimes, I mean, like, you can go be a professor, right? And like, obviously that's a much different route than like what we're going, but like, you're working in higher ed, right? You're a
Hmm.
faculty member. So there's so many different things you can do. And so I guess for people who have enjoyed their higher education experience and maybe are stuck of like, what do I need to go do next? Like, just go do some research. Go reach out to some people that work at your institution and be like, hey, what do you do? How'd you get there? Right. And I think what you'll find is that a lot of people, myself
Hmm.
included, my fiance included, and many others, did not go to undergrad with the idea that I'm going to
No,
go work
they
in higher
do.
education. I think what
Hmm.
happens is you go and do your undergrad and maybe grad school too, or maybe not, whatever. And you're like, I really like this, and this is a
Yeah.
job that I could do, and it's very giving, and it feels great to work here. And so, for as much as I think sometimes higher education, it's like, oh, education, man, it's all messed up, and nobody gets paid anything. But what I ultimately say is that, like, the part of the payment for me is just how giving it is, right?
Hmm.
Being able to every day, in theory, make an impact on someone. And you every day, maybe not, right?
Hmm.
But you have the opportunity to, and I think that's a pretty cool thing. And I think when I read studies and when I hear from our department heads and the people who are smarter than me and read all the studies, What they say is that this new generation of people, and we might be on the fringe of this, but even younger, like they don't just want to do a job to do a job and make a paycheck. Like they want to make a difference. And I'm like, if you want to make a difference, education is one of the best places to start, you know? And so, you know, I think education is a great thing. And I know I said this earlier, but I truly believe in the power and you know, might of higher education. And I say higher education as someone, I went to a 4-year, but similar to what Hiram Marquez was saying, like go to a 2-year, go to a tech college. You know, not everybody needs to go to a 4-year institution. Some need to go to a private, some need to go to a D1, a bigger school, some need to go to a mid-size like you and I, whatever it is. But I do think across the board, it makes a difference. You meet so many different people, you get outside your comfort zone, you're challenged, you learn. And I think there's a lot of really positive things. And I don't say that to, you know, I would say cast out people who are like higher ed isn't for me. I respect that 100%, but someone who's gone through it and I think has been, like we talked about, given some opportunities that I don't think I would have had otherwise. It's I'm certainly biased to think that higher education is a really cool thing.
Man, needed to hear that inspiration right there. I'm ready to run through a brick wall for higher education right now.
That's right.
Tyler,
all day, every day, baby.
Thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure. Can't wait to hear you at some more games this year. Take care, dude.
You bet. Thanks, David. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course, man.